Hey guys, everyone. Welcome to the Man Cave. This is episode 6, and today it's me, Julius, and Mason. I'm actually really liking these three people, uh, three people man caves. It's everyone gets to speak a little bit more, and I think we're able to get it a little bit more into the nitty gritty. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy today. And today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of guys want. We think about a lot, or we're going through a lot, but we just don't know what to say or how to express it. But it's, going through these difficult times and how do we deal with them, or what's going on in our minds. So we have been talking about this a little bit before this recording. So, let's get into it. What are the things that you guys are struggling with right now at the moment?
Mm.
There must be too many things because you guys are picking them in your brain, right? If I were to talk about my struggle, which might be a little bit, maybe older people might get this more than the younger people. I've been running in this history for over 20 years, and so I've been here 25 years in Providence, and I ran for about 21 of it. And then I stopped head leading. That was my last mission I had. And then for the last 4 years, it's just been kind of floating. You know what I mean? I'm floating and I don't know where my next destination is. And it's been like this for 4 years. So it's not like it's been such a small, like it's like a short amount of time. I just feel like I'm floating and I'm not going towards any destination. And that's the thing that's kind of just been eating up my mind a bit. Have you guys ever gone through something like this?
Yeah, I guess you could say, in other words, you lost your purpose.
Uh, I don't know if I lost a purpose. I think more than losing a purpose, it more feels like uh, I don't know what my next one is.
Mm. So like a chapter closed, you were head leading, you were doing these things.
Yeah,
That's done. It's complete.
but it's not even like a chapter. That was 21 years of my life, all running full
Mm.
time Providence, and then I'm here now, and now it's kind of sad when I say this. Like I'm living with my parents, and I'm 45 years old. I don't have a job.
Mama!
Wait a second, I get my mom to cook me some potatoes.
Mom, is there any kimchi jjigae?
What were you gonna say, Julius?
No, I was just gonna say, all of a sudden you have a southern accent
Mm,
for some reason now that you're living with your mom.
yeah, I know.
In
Yeah, I'm a
Canada.
mama's boy, I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, for sure. Well, at the moment for my um, it's I have this kind of idea of something now much more before than earlier on, I guess, in Providence, where that I feel I have kind of conviction that this is something that I should this is my role or how I can contribute myself in this history. But a lot of times it kind of seems in the process as I'm doing a lot of I'm working towards it, it feels kind of impossible.
Mm,
Uh, and but I also feel like that's a test of my faith. Do I really believe like God can work powerfully through me? Do I have faith that God can do the impossible? Um, if I do it together with God. But um, in the process of doing it, I feel like, oh, is this even God's will,
mm.
or is it just my own kind of thinking? And like, will all this effort be in vain because it seems like too difficult? And yeah, like, um, should I be spending all my time on this? Yeah, yeah. Even though I feel like I have this drive that this is something that I should work on, for this history. yeah, to help in this history. Yeah, thinking long term. So it's that kind of struggle as to, am I heading to, I believe this is the direction I should be heading. I feel like some kind of drive, but it seems kind of very too difficult, impossible, or uncertain if it's even the right direction, if
Right.
it's really the right direction God wants me to go.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. Like, is it just my own thoughts, or is it really God putting those thoughts in me so that this is the vision that God has for me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You guys ever feel like now that we're all going through these different types of things, what do you think would be like you guys, all of us here, I know, because I know all of both of you guys here, we ran full-time Providence before, we ran hard for Providence too, right? You guys ever feel like torn that, like sometimes we got to work, we got to make money, we got to, some uh people are getting prepared for marriage and stuff like that. They got to, get out of debt or start making money, whatever it is. You ever get torn like when you're doing your work, but you also want to do God's work?
100%. 100%. When I first started coming to church, that's all I wanted to do. I didn't like, I was, have a part-time job and blah blah blah. And I was kind of going to school back and forth, like doing a semester, not doing a semester, not really taking, college that seriously. But all I wanted to do was that, because I'm like, what's more valuable than this? Like, this is going to change the world. This is going to change my life. This is going to change my salvation. Why would I not invest everything into this? But then other people would be like, oh, but you got to get a degree. You should go to school. Sunsonim said this, Sunsonim said that. And so, um, full disclosure, I did not get a degree. So I did not complete school. And I just started working all the time. I have a full-time job now, and I still attend service. I don't skip service.
I'm glad you don't skip service.
Also,
I got a full-time job. I don't go to church anymore.
that would be crazy though, right? It's like, yeah, but now I got a full-time job. Sometimes I make Sunday service. Like, no, come on. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I've kind of done like both ends of the spectrum where it's like I only want to do church work. This is what I only want to do. Like I was evangelizing almost every single day. I was teaching whenever I could. I started learning how to teach the Bible studies like right away, like right when I realized and right when I started coming to church. That's when I started, putting my notes together, starting to get a feel for teaching and all of that stuff. But on the other end, now I work full time. Now it's like, where do I find the time to do church work and all this stuff? And how do I make myself physically prepared, like financially and in that aspect, to be ready for, a family? Because right now I'm broke, so it's like I want to focus on the spiritual things, but I want to fix the financial issues. Where do I find the balance? How long is this going to take? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing God's will? Am I fulfilling the purpose? What should I really be doing right now? Is it enough? Is it too much? Are my goals too big? Are my goals wrong? So there's a lot of, uncertainty, and it kind of it's worries me, and it's bothersome, because I want to make the right decisions, but at the same time I'm asking God, like, is this the right decision? Like, how do I know? So
Julius, you feel that too?
Well, actually, I would say compared to you guys, like my earlier days in Providence wasn't 100% full-time running. Like I felt when I first came, I was set on fire in the word, and the word was so amazing, but I felt so like it was just before the rapture. I felt so unprepared, like, to meet this history. I think at that time, I also kind of felt there was many things I didn't fully understand or realize about the word, so I didn't have that full conviction that I should to really run, or like if I can preach, because I'm not sure if I fully understand this is true. Like there's still some questions that I have, but the Holy Spirit's inspiring me to keep learning. And I felt like I had, I kind of felt like I had, because especially at that time, the word rapture word was quite strong as well. I felt like I had too many shortcomings to do God's work, and I need to focus on myself and my own faith. And so at that time, I think I spent more time just trying to manage my faith,
Right.
and putting effort into that. And I was my degree was super hard, and I was trying to do soccer as well. And so I was caught up just trying to manage that I wasn't really running, like, because my degree was super hard. Doing electrical engineering, it was just driving me crazy. And while trying to play competitive soccer, so the energy that I had was only enough to manage my faith. And like after I graduated, and I decided to invest, like to really try and invest time to learn the word more deeply, so that I can have, because when I met Sansanim, I kind of like was a little bit, man, I don't think I'm ready. Like this is like the worst kind of like state to meet Sansanim. I want to meet Sansanim when I'm like, I don't know, like just like fully convicted, and I've done all these kinds of things, said all these kinds of and so when I met Sansanim, I didn't feel like, oh man, this is the best meeting ideal. So I kind of felt like, man, the next time that I meet Sansanim is gonna be different. So I invested a lot of time in studying the word and faith.
Oh wow.
And I realized a lot more deeply. And because of that, I kind of felt like I need to make up spiritually for the years where I was kind of like just maybe walking. I need to run and catch up in terms of what I should do for the Trinity in this history. Even before I even think about the things to do with the blessing, I kind of felt like, oh man, there's a lot of time it's not enough time I've spent in fulfilling God's will. I kind of felt like that.
You think it's quite I was trying to think to myself, how did this connect to the original thing we started? Do you think it's possible that, like what I was talking about, not knowing, I went from full-time to just running regular Providence, right? And do you think people look down on it if people aren't doing as much for the church? Like the guys like feel bad that they're only working?
I think that might be circumstantial, which could affect how a guy particularly would answer that question. Because for like a single young guy in his like early or mid-20s, perhaps he would feel bad, if, let's say, he didn't have like a clear idea of his career path, and he's just kind of floating around, and he has his faith, and he's going to church and everything, and participating in services, but if he really isn't doing anything career wise to build himself up in the world, to in that kind of a sense, financially and career wise, then I would think it would make more sense, like, okay, if you're not doing that, then wouldn't you be more inclined to be a lot more involved in the church, to do something so that at least you feel like you have some sort of you're accomplishing something, right? Because guys are very goal oriented. We want to achieve something. We want to make something. We want to develop. We want to create. That's kind of how we are. And so if you're not doing it in your career, shouldn't you be doing it in church then?
Well,
But
do you think maybe this might be a better way of putting it is, do you think in Providence do we give a premium? Like, do we advertise that more, like to a guy, right? Because if 90+% of the people in all the 90+% of the people in Providence are going to get married, right? 90 plus, we're talking way up there. They're almost like almost everyone's going to get married, almost, right? If that's the case, then everyone can't be running full time or running that much, right? So do you think we promote it too much to the spiritual side so guys are not as ambitious for these working things?
that makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's not. It didn't seem to be discouraged, but it was not really promoted at all. Like, well, it's focused on the spiritual, which is, I think, that makes that, like, from people I've spoken to, some people I've spoken to did feel indignant that like feeling like not everyone has to, you should, like, I guess in the past, like, they felt looked down upon for I guess not being full-time in the church or something, and indignant about that. But I didn't quite experience it myself. I was kind of because I guess because it was still early and I was a newcomer. They were very understanding about my school and, like, doing well in university. That was never discouraged. I just wasn't. But I thought that was the most important thing, the spiritual thing. The school was kind of my more responsibility wise, kind of, my parents, want me to do well in Australia. I should do well in school. Yeah.
Well, then that brings me to the question, do you think we should promote it more then? Like, for guys to, be ambitious also in the work world?
Absolutely, because I think that was a perception that was not that important. Yeah. It was unspoken. I can't say I experienced discouragement, but I know other people.
How would we, if you guys were in a position to make some changes, what would be something that you would say is this would be something that would encourage someone to start doing better in work too? Like in the church, because the church is so spiritual, but if we're going to encourage it or promote it, like to do well in work also, we can't just say we got to promote it. There's got to be, we can't just like, it feels fake if someone just says, and everyone, guys, just make sure you guys do well in your work and, make more money.
Definitely some kind of organizing some career education, like testimonies, people taking action on the word, and how that helped them in work, or like just education of, I think, how, because that word is very powerful in applying it in many different ways. So I think that would really help. And I know Japan, from what I've had with Japan, too, they have, even the way they evangelize, they have, like, big business people or in Providence who talk about how they learned some things principles they've learned in the Bible, and they have like a career conference and people come in, and they have those kinds of things. So they contribute in that way. So maybe it's on the Western side, it's a bit smaller. So maybe it can be hard, but perhaps online with people, with people around the world who can offer that education for those who don't have those people. Yeah. So a lot of people are young. That's the other thing. Yeah,
what do you think? What do you think, Mason? What can we do to kind of promote or celebrate like people doing well in their jobs and stuff too?
Excuse me. I agree with what Julia said, that I think that it would be really great if people who are actually doing well in their career, or let's say that they own a business or something and they are doing well financially, they are succeeding in that area, that they could promote that to the male members and being like, hey, you don't have to sacrifice one or the other.
Mm,
You don't have to just be doing well at church and struggling in your career and struggling in your finances and vice versa. But you can balance it out, and you can find that kind of cohesion where you're doing this and it's helping this.
mm,
Primarily, you're doing well spiritually, and it's also spilling over into your career. It's spilling over into your business so that you
mm,
are succeeding financially. I think that if there are people that are like that within Providence in various nations around the world, that they could really empower and encourage some of the younger guys that are in their
mm,
early, mid, or just 20s in general, and they could show them like, hey, you could do it too. This is how I did it. If you implement these, practices, if you do well in the church, you keep your daily life of faith, like you go
mm,
and you pray, attend pre-dawn, Sunday service, etc. If you keep the fundamentals in your faith, then that could very much contribute to your career, your
mm,
finances, etc. So I think that people that are actually doing it, really doing it, and they're seeing the results and they're achieving the things that they want to achieve, they could show that to the younger guys and be like, hey, it's doable, it's achievable.
mm. How about do you guys think that we're a little bit too strict when it comes to the spiritual, like the daily faith? Like, Julius was saying that, you were a newcomer, so people understood you got a really, really hard major. But sometimes people who have hard majors or they want to become super successful, sometimes like being a doctor or a lawyer, whatever it is, it's going to take up all your time. You can't come to Sunday service sometimes, you can't come to all the pre-dawns, whatever it is. And then it almost feels like you're being looked down upon. Like, do you think it's a bit too strict, or do you think it's just because we're a spiritual church?
Too too strict in the like in terms of looking down if they can't manage it, or
Yeah. Like you feel bad that you're working so hard for school because you're missing all these church things. But then if you want to become like a great lawyer, doctor, engineer, whatever it is, sometimes you do overnights and stuff. It takes all your time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely that happened. Um, uh, well, uh, I think it will vary from church to church, the church culture, because yeah, I did most of my growing up in Brisbane too, in
Mm,
Brisbane too, and while I was a newcomer, so while I was studying my degree out, it was, I felt quite encouraged. When I came to pre-dawn as a newcomer at the church, at the house church, the pastor cooked for me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, good job." Yeah, so it was
mm,
like, so, about if I didn't manage to come, I was not really felt like, oh, I failed. Yeah, so
mm,
I kind of felt like, oh, the effort that I tried to do spiritual things was, despite all being having trying to do soccer and doing my degree was acknowledged. Yeah, it just didn't. I think it's just helping people understand that that's valuable too to Providence, because like I didn't really feel like for myself that, oh, this is actually, I'm kind of it's a contribution to God's will, by finishing my degree. That's like something just for me, for myself. It's not. So I didn't quite feel that. So people might sometimes think that what they're doing is um, maybe selfish or not uh, part of God's will, overall will. Yeah.
well, Mason, you didn't grow up in a pioneering church, so your church is a little bit bigger. How about you?
uh well, there definitely was obviously an emphasis on the spiritual part of my life and my development. So doing well in pre-dawn, attending Sunday service, Wednesday service, and Friday programs if it was happening. And I enjoyed that because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't really care about, school or anything like that. Honestly, it's never really been something for me. That's why I dropped out, because I got to the point where I just asked myself, like, what am I even doing here? Like I had you know, I was in a major and I was working towards it, but then I was just like, what am I doing? And I really, it just boiled down to, I'm not even doing this for me. I'm doing this because somebody else said that I need to do it. Oh, you
Mm.
need to get a degree. So I'm like, I don't want this. So I just was just like, I'm done. And so I was okay with like, oh yeah, focus on the spirituality and everything and all that. But uh within my first year, um it was also really like put on me like, hey, you can't just run, you know.
Mm.
um More likely than not, you're going to wind up being someone who's going to be matched with, a life partner. You're going to get married, you're going to have a wife, you're going to have a family. So you can't just focus on the spiritual things only. You have to figure out, work, a career. You have to make money, because more likely than not, you're going to be matched with someone and you're going to need to be able to support them. And I'm like,
When
oh
were you
yeah.
told this? How early or late?
I think at the time I was like 21,
Mm.
so it kind of put my mind on that kind of perspective. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be blessed. I'm going to be blessed. So I need to really consider these things. So, um, I mean, it doesn't make it any easier, you
Mm.
know. I'm still having a hard time with it, but uh yeah, I guess just to answer that question, like when I first came and I was going to church, that it was very spiritual in the beginning.
Mm.
Uh, and I think it just suited me. Uh, but of course, it's case by case, I
Okay,
think.
so let's flip the script. Flip the script as in us when we're dealing with other people, other members. So now we were first talked about how we felt when we're coming in, but then we're in this spiritual atmosphere and environment. And what if you're taking care of people and they're not doing what they're supposed to do spiritually, and they're so focused on school and stuff? How did you guys feel about that?
Hmm. Well, I know that because I've lectured a handful of people and I've also helped with some of the newcomers. I um I try not to be particularly overbearing, because I
Mm.
know with my personality, I'm very strong about doing things. Like like you guys know me. Like, oh, I'm gonna do I'm gonna set a timer and do 1,000 push-ups in 20 minutes or whatever.
Mm.
Crazy things like that. Yeah, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, and I don't make excuses.
Mm.
So I know that that character might be too strong for somebody else. So if I see someone that's they're in school, for example, and they're doing really well, they have a very high level goal that they're trying to achieve. They're trying to get into a very competitive field in the sciences, or in the legal aspect. I try to be very understanding and put myself in their shoes. Like, okay, they're working towards this degree, doing overnight things and yada yada yada. So I just compromise with them as much as I can and ask them, hey, okay, you're struggling spiritually, you're not making pre-dawns at all. You're having a difficulty making Sunday service. What is an achievable goal for you right now? What is something that you could do that you know is achievable, that'll boost your confidence, so that way you could try and figure out a balance where you could either keep that level, or either keep that level or raise it up a little bit more, something that is doable and it's not going to be overbearing on you. So there was one particular example where I did do that with one of the campus guys a couple of years ago, and we would just have regular calls on a weekly basis. We would pray together for like 15 to 25 minutes. We would talk, catch up, be like, all right, well, we'll do this again next week, and just let me know how you're doing. So it's really situational because everyone's kind of different, but I try and understand what they're doing, what they're struggling with, and just working with them so that they become more confident and consistent in their faith.
Mm. What about you, Julius? What's been when you're taking care of others? How is that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Mason said is really good. Like trying, identifying, because sometimes they might not want to do spiritual things, but other times it's also because that it's just too, I don't know how to do this because without messing up my school or messing up this, it's too hard. I can't be sleepy when I'm going to school or something like that. Like I need to get these focus in class. So if I wake the period, then I can't focus, and then I'm gonna fail my test. This kinds of, so sometimes they might be willing, but it's too hard. And so if you find something that they're trying to do and you help them with it, then that's helpful, like supportive. I think that's really excellent because having that accountability is very encouraging to help you stay consistent when you don't feel like doing it. And then you develop, the person might develop the habit by having somebody get them started by doing it together, like a prayer condition. Then they develop a habit of prayer. Something that's really great. Also, when I think about my struggles to live spiritually at that time, like I think really learning, having really good knowledge and understanding about like health, sleep, these kinds of things, and in general, while trying to help somebody or whatever that it is that they're struggling with, is really important to really help them. Because when I think about how I try to deal with this struggles I was facing, like, in terms of balancing sleep quality and then being able to do my degree, like there's so many things I was doing wrong. But when I learned about all these health topics and things like that, which was one of the reasons I shared Health is Happiness, it made it possible to do both, and in a comfortable way. Yeah, and so like knowing this and then being able to offer good advice like that is very practical, can help somebody see that it is possible. Yeah, because sometimes you just don't know what to do, and then your health is really bad, like, which is what was happening to me because I was doing things the wrong way. Yeah, confession, I was drinking coffee when I shouldn't supposed to be drinking coffee. Yeah, not good.
So with all the experience you guys have now, and when you look at the future of Providence and all, a lot of times I do see like I'm in a different situation because I was full-time Providence all my life, basically all my 20s and 30s and into my early 40s. But when I find it quite sad for me when I see a lot of younger Providence members who are not trying to achieve something higher. Like they're not going towards full-time Providence. They're really, they're kind of like Mason said, they feel kind of like, I'm not sure what I want to do. And by the time it gets to marriage, there's like, they may not be in a position that's probably financially healthy enough, or that's good for themselves. It might be better. What would be like, from all the experiences you guys have now, what would be, if you were to talk to members right now, young guys in Providence that are like going through university and they'll be graduating soon, what kind of message would you want to give these guys?
Ho 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 ho. Ho ho. So for me personally, I would just really emphasize, if you're about to graduate, don't put everything on your degree. Don't use your degree as a backboard to score, basically, because the thing that you studied for in school might not be the career that you wind up with. And this actually happens a lot of the time, statistically speaking. People go to college to become an accountant, and they're working at a pet store or something like that. It happens a lot. So what I would emphasize is if you're going to pick a certain career, you should go with it 100%. Find a way to get inside that career. If you're not gonna pursue college, then you really have to have a plan, like a serious plan. How are you going to make money? What's your business model? How are you going to advertise it? Who's your target audience, et cetera, et cetera? Because you can't just like go through life, especially in this history, like a leaf being blown by the wind. Of course, inspiration by the Holy Spirit must be taken into account when you receive it, but you really have to plan it out well. If you go to, like, for example, if you go to some CEO of a company and be like, hey, I want a job and I could start now. Well, what are your skill sets? What could you do for me? I don't know. Just tell me what you want me to do. It's not really going to work. And so in the same way, if you go to the Trinity and you're like, I want to have this much money. Okay, well, what's your plan? Like, if you just go to the Trinity with vague prayers and vague requests and you don't really have the conditions set, what are they really going to give you, honestly? So if you have a plan and you have a goal and you at least have some beginning steps towards where you want to be, that could really benefit you in the long run. But I think basically to just sum all that up is know your end goal, know where you want to be, start really developing a plan of how to get there. Whether you go to college, whether you don't go to college, whether you want to run for God's history, or if you want to have a family, know what your end goal is, the final destination, plan it out.
Right.
Plan it out, present it to God, let God help you, let people help you figure out how to get there.
Right. I agree. Yeah, that's good. And that's like, even if it's something so small that they start off as like a salesperson in like some cell phone store, but they're like, I want to be manager. I want to be district manager. I want, you're kind of planning it out. And I think that's a good plan. Like, you bring it before God and say, I really, it may seem small now. I'm making what, minimum wage, but I want to get up to the manager, district manager, more, or in charge of the whole West Coast or something along that line. And it changes the trajectory of your thoughts, right? Instead of just, yeah, I'm just going to work minimum wage and let's just see what happens kind of things. And nothing really happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Julius, what about you? What would you say? Young, new people getting ready to graduate, these males, very rare males in this history. What would you say to them?
Yeah, first of all, definitely you can't bank everything on your degree. Like, I did electrical, I'm a software engineer now. Because definitely reality of working is different from your degree. And so I would say as quickly as possible, and even for those who are starting to study, try and speak to people who are working in that industry and learn actually what they're going to do, because it's not the same as your degree. The expectations are different. So you need to speak to these people, try and get, if you can get an internship early, that's even better. But just speaking to them will help you a lot more. I understand what is actually done in your day-to-day life if you pursue this career. And second thing is really identify what your capitalize on what are your inherent traits that God has given you that you have, that you if you can find work that doesn't feel like work, that's natural to you, then you can become really, really good at that. Yeah, because you can't compete with the person at the highest level who that work for them is like play. It's like having fun,
Right.
because they're just going to do it all day, and it's something that's also natural to them. Whereas if you but of course all work is a grind, but there's things that you enjoy doing that or that you have an affinity to. So maybe it's math, maybe it's speaking, and look at career paths that have those things going for you, and you'll already have a really good runway to be able to do really well in whatever that area is. Yeah. And there's something for everyone. So you need to look at that. You need to really reflect on yourself and look at the things, even from childhood, maybe things that you had a tendency towards,
Right.
kind of like, and try and connect that with what your end goal is. Yeah, what you're trying to set your end goal to. And you do that combined with prayer, then God will help you really discover those things. And yeah, it's amazing. And then the last thing I'd really say is really learn, this really helped me a lot, is really learn the biblical principles really, really well. So the foundation of the 30 lessons, because so on that foundation of understanding the 30 principles, if you read the Bible quite often, a lot of things that happen in society actually principles, and you'll be able to do well by being able to apply these principles. Yeah, and that's something that I've experienced for myself, and it's really, really valuable. Yeah, it's so important. You'll be able to see how God's helping you too. Yeah.
And I think this is really important. Maybe it's something that we should think about implementing in our churches too, like just to really inspire the guys to not feel bad that they're being ambitious about something that's not spiritual, like not literally spiritual, right? Some people might feel bad, like, oh, but then what if this, and oh, it's going to be hard here, and then what if I can't come to church? And I think Sunseam is way more forgiving than we are. Like, he understands it way better than we are. And we're more strict about it. But then Sunseam's like, oh man, they're a doctor. They can't make it Sunday. Just watch it on Monday. And we're like, what? Just watch it. Oh, what day? You got Wednesday off? Go watch Sunday service on Wednesday. What? But I do think one thing that I do hope that guys can get inspired to become great in this history, but realizing that not everyone has to be a pastor and not everyone has to run full-time in church. And I think if we get into the mindset of the people running full-time are better than everyone else, that's like 10% of the church then is better than 90%, and 90% are not going to get inspired, but they're going to feel more discouraged that they're not doing enough for church, kind of thing. But I do think we need to inspire all the guys out there. It's kind of like what Sunseam said in the past is, like, how different, like when he talks about John the Baptist, he's like, how different would it be if John the Baptist came, someone who is from the leadership of Judaism? But instead, you had all the people, sorry to say, like fishermen and tax collectors were all at the bottom. Right? But imagine, like, let's just say Julius has got he's in a smaller church right now, right? How big's your church right now?
About 30 people.
So about 30 people. But imagine, like, all the people working are doctors, lawyers, engineers, software designers, and all these are different things. And when people come, they're going to be thinking differently. They just can't help it. Right? They're going to be like, whoa, like, why are all these great, like these amazing people here? And it makes a difference. And I think we might put too much of an emphasis on internal witnesses and not enough on external witnesses. So I hope it's something that a lot of guys will be able to benefit from if they can listen to this man cave and say, oh, that's so true. This is what we need. We need these guys. It doesn't mean you have to be CEO, but district managers or, people who are making their way up, and they're highly respected for their character in their jobs and their companies. I think that would be a huge thing.
Yeah. I definitely feel that also, like, yeah, it can give guys confidence too as well, to utilize too, I believe. Yeah. If they have some kind of that kind of accomplishment. Yeah.
Right.
And And also, if there's a lot of male members that are in the church that are in these high status positions, maybe not CEO like you
Yeah.
said, Pastor Sky, but if they're like a district or regional manager, or their company is international and they're on like some sort of board within their company, and they're overseeing all of these things, and they have a high position, right? They have a lot of, for lack of better terms, underlings or something like that. And
I love
That's
that.
how
they
guys
have,
think. That's how guys
yeah.
think, girls. If they have a lot of underlings, people that will bow down to them and
Oh yes,
worship.
Pastor Sky, yes. But like, if we have people like that in the church, and then male newcomers come in and they see that, they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, okay. Because regular churches have that,
Right.
former faith churches, to be more specific, they got big, surgeons, doctors, all types of people from various professions that practice their faith, and they go to church and do these things, but you know we don't really have that yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like when I was in New York, I was next to Hillsong, 3 blocks away from our church, right? And Justin Bieber was attending there.
yeah.
I don't
It's
know if
like,
that's
what
a
the
good
heck?
thing, but it was big news,
Hey,
Yeah,
I guess he's working on his salvation, which is good.
which is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think we should be more talking about that he's actually trying.
Yeah, when I first heard about it, and then a couple other celebrities like Kanye West, and
Yeah.
they practicing his faith, and people are like, oh, they're getting really weird. And I'm thinking to myself, how's that weird?
Yeah.
When they're trying to improve themselves, and they're caring about their faith and their salvation. I think that that's a good thing.
Right.
especially being in a place like Hollywood, man. It's not
Oof.
easy.
Mm,
Oh,
seriously.
And I think one thing that we have to understand about like these Hollywood people is they have to do well at their level. Like, can you
Hmm.
imagine who was I listening to? I was listening actually to a comedian. I think it was Dave Chappelle I was listening to.
Hmm.
And it was he was talking about Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods, he divorced his wife, which was who's a supermodel. And everyone's like, "Oh, how could he do that to a supermodel wife?" And the one thing that Dave Chappelle said, which he basically, comedians are noticing from reality the funny things that are that makes us think more deeply. It's funny, but makes us think more deeply. And he said, like, no one has experienced the temptation that someone at the top experiences. You cannot fathom it. He says you'll have like 10 supermodels waiting at your hotel door every single night. He says you don't know the difference of the higher you get, the more the temptation is stronger and bigger. So he's like, I don't think people can talk about it if they haven't been up there, because they don't know how hard it really is.
Mm.
Right. And I think when we see people like the Kanyes and the Justin Biebers and stuff, I don't think we can imagine what that's like.
yeah, it
No.
can be good for your mental health to have
Yeah.
people 24/7.
Yeah. At that point,
Telling
like,
you.
I think God is going to be a little bit more understanding about their position than ours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you're up there and you have just women or men bombarding you all the time,
Yeah.
you have to really have yourself on lock. You
Right.
really have to just be about your business, because I'm
Right.
sure it's extremely tempting, you know.
And if I were to kind of like miniaturize that temptation as a guy, as a guy myself, when we're strong in faith, it's fine. Like, we don't
Mm,
have problems.
Mm.
But we can't be on that high, like that high level, that walking that thin line all the time.
yeah.
Right. And there's sometimes we fall into some type of, it's nothing close to what they're falling into, because we're not going to have the same temptation.
Hmm.
But we fall into temptation all the time too. It's not when things are great. It's always a time when things are not so great. And can you imagine that when your faith is not so great, what is waiting at your door?
Mm.
Right. And I think that's something, as a guy, I'm like, man, that's not easy. Like, that is a tough thing that they have to go through.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I recently had a talk with a couple people who, a couple guys that they might have made some mistakes in the past, but they're trying to come back, right?
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people would probably not welcome them as nicely, but
Mm.
for you guys, what are your thoughts on this? When these, like, I actually think at the end of 2023, when everything gets better again, like when things, like everything clicks again, and you're like, okay, this is what God has done, what He needs to do. I do think there's going to be a lot of people that come back.
Mm.
I do think that, and I'm trying to think about how are we going to get ready for that too. I think it's going to happen.
Right. That actually, that Elijah message made me think a lot about that. It was like in that message, it was, once the 850 prophets of Baal were defeated, and then we clearly knew, oh, this is God's side. Then the people of Israel, a couple of people of Israel, they turned back. They were
Right.
like, oh, the Lord of Israel is the God of Israel is the true God. So
Right.
that made me think about this
And I
happening
think it's
again.
easy to say, oh, you're coming back now when things are easy, but you were worshiping that God before and you were against me.
Right.
So look at our situation now in Providence. There's people, there's a clear split. But imagine someone who was one of the people in the front doing a lot of the, maybe the damage to our side. They want to come back. Like that's not an easy thing to process.
Yeah.
Mm. I agree. I think it's hard because we are as people, not just like men or women separately, but as human beings, I think we're inclined more often than not to respond to things emotionally. And seeing all the things that are happening now, it is frustrating, because, there's I'm not sure about everybody else, but there's people at my church that I've been told aren't coming back. Like I haven't spoken to them directly.
Right.
But they're like, oh yeah, people are saying so and so is gone, so and so is not coming back.
Right.
I'm not gonna name names,
No, no,
but
no. Just name them all right now, bro.
all right.
Be
Well, first we
transparent.
got yeah, out of respect for those people,
Yeah, of
you know.
course. Yeah, we don't want to hear the names, but only after the
Yeah,
recording stops.
gotcha.
Just kidding.
It's there's a lot of people that stopped coming and they don't want
Yeah.
to come to the church anymore, and they're on the other side, and they're they have their reason for not coming anymore. But if I really think about it and I process it in my mind, then they all left for a particular reason that in their mind makes sense to them.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong, but I'm just saying, hey, that's what they think and that's what they feel, and they're entitled to their free will.
Right.
If they choose to come back, I'm not gonna, it'll be awkward maybe for a little bit, but I wouldn't hold anything against them personally if I'm speaking for myself, because honestly, what matters is not the fact that they had a lapse of judgment and then all of a sudden when things are said and done they decide to come back. I
Right.
don't care about that. What I care about is their salvation.
Okay.
Even if they have
Hey,
to start
Mason, I'm gonna
again,
take it to
then
another level, bro. Because
okay,
this is what
go.
guys do. Imagine that person was the one that took your sister out of Providence, and then they're coming back. Or your mom.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would make it a little bit more challenging, but I would still figure out a way because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
um, for me, I'm someone that wants to make God happy,
Right.
right? I really want to see God with a smile on his face at the end of the day. If I could make it happen, then sure, I'll do my very best. And knowing that God loves each and every single person in the world more than I could imagine, how happy would he be if he sees someone that fell away and then they came back.
All right,
Would he
next
want me
level.
to...
What if they killed your mom? No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Oh
just
my
kidding.
gosh.
You're
Oh
going
my
John Wick.
gosh. Oh my God. Making it harder to answer that question.
Mason's like, crap. Ah, no. He just wants me to get emotional.
He took my sister out of Providence. He killed my sister and took her out of Providence. Picked my dog.
Julius, you said you were thinking about that during the Elijah thing. So how would you process that?
Right. Yeah, I think you're touching a point which was really very relevant. This is how personal it became, depending on, like, I guess where you are at,
right,
in where this whole situation is happening in Providence. Like, if you think about it in Korea, and let's say you're a member who's lost their job because of this person ended up slandering. They're struggling to support their family, something like that. It would be very hard. It would impact, like as Mason said, because of that emotional part of it. But I believe that it's very helpful to think about it in the way that Mason said, which is you're for God's sake and for the Lord's sake too, and for the fact that it's this is about heaven and hell, this person, forever, eternity. So it's them coming back, and somebody who's God's counterpart of love is saved from that kind of circumstance, is something that you can't really want them to not come back,
right?
If you think about it from that perspective, it's not just like, oh, you left the team, now you can't come back, you're no longer part of the club, we ban you, go to another club, like another football. It's not that kind of situation. So so of course it takes time to process the emotion. You don't have to be okay all of a sudden, but it can take time,
right?
And but not holding on to that, because, even though it might take time.
I think one thing that like when I just heard both of your answers, I think one thing that's an automatic for a guy is we're dealing with it by ourselves. Because we're like, oh, I would think this, and I would have to hold on to this, and then the emotions would be like this. But I think one thing, because guys, we're just like this innately. We're like, I can handle this. I can do this. This is my responsibility. I have to, process my emotions, everything else. I think it's also a good thing. Like, I think that's what we're doing on the Man Cave, is we're just kind of trying to help everyone process together. Like, I think it's good. Like, maybe even after some of this blows over, just get some of the guys together and talk about it. Right? Because once we process it, then we're not going to deal with it as emotionally as we would. Like, they say that the guys, when we get emotional, it's like a spike. And then it comes back down like a spike. It goes up and then down, and then we're kind of back to normal, right? Where girls, it's like gradual. And it's never ending, and it just gets higher and higher. And that's why when you do something wrong, girls will bring it up 17 years later in an argument.
I go back to that example I gave like a couple episodes ago when I was talking with a family member.
Yeah.
It's a female family member. She's like, do you know what so-and-so did 30 years ago? I'm like, get over it.
I know, 30 years ago, which is nuts. Yeah.
I wasn't even born 30 years ago. Like,
and we seem insensitive because we've already forgot it. Do you remember that? Do you remember that last year? I'm like, remember what?
That's the thing. Like, it used to annoy me so much in arguments with my brother, because I'd be like, man, you always do this. And my brother would say, when? And I couldn't remember. So he'd get away with it.
In the recesses of your mind, you know that he's done it at multiple points.
Right. I remember the feeling. The feeling comes back every time. Yeah.
I'm triggered.
Yeah, but I think that's something that we may have to do like in these man caves later on at the end of the year. Kind of just start to process everything really well so that we'll be ready for some things that might, people might start coming back and stuff like that too, that we have to be ready to receive them really well. Like I really truly believe we have to receive them with the heart of God, that there's nothing more that God wants than for all of them to, if someone once asked me what's the most ideal situation, is like, in the end, everyone repents and comes back. That's the most ideal. That's the most ideal. Everyone comes back and God would be like, oh, like I think that would be, I see that as the greatest. If you think about the shepherd with 100 sheep and one goes astray, leaves the 99. And when he finds that one sheep, the heavens rejoice. Right. And I think that's kind of the shimjung in the heart of God that I think for myself, in a lot of places, I don't feel the brotherhood of men. Like that loyalty, like straight up, I'll die for this brother of mine. And if that, like, I'm going to give you an example, right? If a head leader like starts getting mad, they would, I don't know what the right word is. I'm going to say kind of like, I was going to say lie for me, but more of cover for me. Do you know what I mean? Like that's brotherhood where, we're not like looking, when someone gets in trouble, you're like, ooh, oh, they did something bad. But instead it's like, I'll tell you what I found very inspiring when I was in Korea. So, this is way back in the day. So this is when everything was kind of good. And, KJS at that time is AJ and very good at that time. Beginning of the Lord's Church. Man, one of the guys just got blasted by AJ, like rebuked beyond rebuked, right? And after the rebuke is like this, and the person is like so ashamed. Another guy steps in and says, "Hey, please forgive him. He works so hard. Like he's coming home late from church, and he does this, and he was testifying for him." Right after the rebuke. And I sat there like, whoa, like who has the guts to put themselves in the line of fire for another brother? You know what I mean? And that's when I kind of felt like, yeah, that's brotherhood. That's like, that is someone sticking up for their brother kind of thing, right? Like, can you imagine if that was like Sunseam was blasting one of us? Would we have the gall? Or, other word that rhymes with that? Right? But would they be big enough for you to go in and say, Sunseam, this person is works so hard at church. They're real, and they testify for you in front of him during that time. Like I think that, and even with broken Korean.
Oh wow.
Right? Can you imagine that? Like I think that would be brotherhood that I would be willing to, like I would want that type of community of brotherhood.
Same. I mean,
build up. Yeah,
I guess. Oh, go ahead, Julius.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, that would be cool. Like I guess that's a different level. Like I don't think well, we have brotherhood, but yeah, it's.
I think I might be slightly different, because both of you guys, as you're young in your childhood, you actually had a brother growing up.
Right.
I did. I got my brother 20 years late, so I'm kind of mad about that. But I learned brotherhood from, my friends,
right,
and other guys that I was around, and I will say that there are some of those guys at church where I'm just like, dude, like you're solid. Other guys not so much, but for me, I would want to be that for some of the other guys, because there's literally been an occurrence in my life when I was younger. This is way before Providence and anything, but I literally stood in front of a gun to protect one of my friends.
Mm.
Like in real life, thing was live and ready to rock, and I was just like, nope, not today. So I want to be that for the other guys. I want to be able to show them like, hey, like no matter what, I got you. Doesn't
How
matter.
how would we achieve that in this brotherhood in our churches and stuff?
I really think it comes from constant interaction,
Mm.
and you really have to show it to the, you know, to reach the point of like, oh wow, this guy really has my back. I want to have his back in the same way. You have to have like those interactions, and
Mm.
it'll come up naturally, but you just show it to them, not intentionally, but you might do something where, or you'll have a conversation and something comes up and they just, it clicks and people are like, oh, okay. I think it'll take time, and it'll have, the rapport has to build, of course.
Right.
But as guys, we know that there's a lot of layers that go into that. Like there's the camaraderie, the goofing around, you know, uh, teasing each other. That's just like some of the easy things. But when it really gets into the nitty gritty,
Mm.
and you're struggling, and then that one guy's like, no, we're gonna figure this out. I got you. There's a handful of guys that in Providence that I know are like that because we went through it and we experienced it together.
Right.
I think more than anything, it takes time, and it takes also a willingness to put yourself out there so that the other guy, the other Providence member, the other male member
Mm.
sees that and is like, wow, this guy is, you know, he really cares about me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and um, it definitely takes time because there's that part there. I think one of the more deeper layers that it needs to get to is that open sharing between guys, which
Right.
requires first layer of attraction and camaraderie first, and then because you know there's always the I guess tendency. Well, it might vary from culture to culture, but there's a more stronger tendency for guys uh to always cover up any signs of weakness,
Mm.
Mm.
um, and not to be avoid vulnerability. But
Right.
within brotherhood gets deep enough, then there's that openness happens more amongst each other, and then helping each other overcome, and then that's when that brotherhood, deep brotherhood develops. So, but the first part is, you know, being able to spend enough time with each other, which yeah.
Mm.
I agree.
I have a kind of a different view. My view would be I think people get closer, but they have to go through something difficult together.
Mm.
Because you can spend a lot
Mm-hmm.
of time with each other, but if everything's all hunky dory and you only spend time when things are good, then I think you couldn't get close because you just wouldn't know how close, like how much what they really thought of you.
Mm.
Yeah, I think like we'll see it like in a miniaturized version in a movie, like two people hate each other, you know, like it's like, you know, some romantic comedy, whatever it is, but then they go through this huge ordeal together, or like it's a war movie, sci-fi, and then through that difficulty, trudging through death, and they almost die or whatever it is, and then they come out of it together. They feel that affection for each other.
Mm.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge, there you go. That is a true testament of that type of thing where they don't hang out like talking deeply to each other. All they
Mm.
wanted was to know is, do you got my back? And I
Mm.
think I might be saying this in the wrong way. So you are free to disagree with me. I think guys, this notion that guys have to share all their feelings is wrong. I don't think that's the way guys work.
I agree.
Yeah, like we do it every once in a while, but I don't think it's something like, hey, share your feelings. I'm like, no, I'm not going to share my feelings. I need to hold it in and become stronger by pushing through it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think it's that necessary to do it all the time.
Well, I think that's the point. Not all the time.
Mm.
There's very specific circumstance where, you know, that moment of vulnerability or showing that weakness
Right.
builds. Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on it's very dependent on the circumstances where that
Right.
conversation, because already it's not a common thing for that to happen amongst guys for a very good reason, because we want to overcome.
Right.
But there's certain like I think you touched on it very clearly. I mean, you touched on it when you said going through those difficult moments. Yeah. Whereas when it gets to that very extreme difficult moment, and you're able to share that struggle with each other rather than just being by yourself, and then you go through it together, that's very powerful. Yeah, it's not sharing feelings about every little thing that is upsetting, or um oh, this is, oh, I'm stressed, oh, I'm sad, not like
Right.
that. It's like, I guess, that deep shimjong, or like that uh that moment where I'm able to uh like, oh, this person has some struggle, I have some struggle.
Mm.
I'm not the only one going through this. This person has gone through it, and so we can um yeah, we can learn from each other.
Right.
Yeah, we're both trying to work things out. So yeah, so I think that's like especially when really successful or powerful uh male figures
Right.
share that part, that struggle in podcasts and things like that. A lot of guys gain from that and learn from that.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that they have a deep connection of brotherhood through that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the sharing that I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's what hits the guys the hardest. They don't
Mm.
even need the talk. They just need someone, like, they showed them that they got your back.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through a struggle. You don't even have to share it, but you know they're there. And you're like, oh, I can trust that guy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that guy is on my side, kind of thing. And I think for me is, well, I could be just because I'm old school, but I think I like the more the stoicism, the stoic route, right?
Mm.
And I think that's what have you guys what's his Marcus Aurelius? He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
people that started stoicism. I'm not sure if he started it, but he has these proverbs he made. They sound just like Sun Tzu's proverbs. They're so deep. I'm just like, what? This sounds like Sun Tzu. Like, what? And he just I agree. I kind of lean towards that as a man, stoicism.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that guys will eventually reach that point, that boiling point they need to share. But
Mm-hmm.
before that, I don't think it's necessary. Like, we need to deal with it and make ourselves stronger through it, like dealing with it, right?
Mm. No, I agree with that part 100%. Right before you mentioned it, Pastor Sky, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, oh, that stoicism. Like
Right,
some people kind of undermine it, like, oh, just um I don't know 100%,
right,
but I would be inclined to think that girls would, when they're dealing with like if their significant other, like, oh, why don't you just share how you feel and da 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 da.
right.
And for me, I'm just like, I don't need to talk about it all the time.
Mm,
I could deal with it. Um, because I agree with that. I like stoicism. It makes you stronger, it makes you more resilient. I'm not saying bottle every single little thing up and forget about it, because that's not the same thing. You should be
mm,
able to process your emotions, understand why you're feeling a certain way when something arises, when a situation arises, but you should be able to handle it You should be able to control it. And if you do happen to reach a boiling point, you should have those people that you trust that you could go to. So it might be your spouse, it might be your brother, it might be another male figure that you look up to, your dad,
Right.
your uncle, your grandpa, your pastor, someone that you could talk to. Because just like girls talk to girls because girls get girls, guys want to talk to guys because guys get guys.
Right.
Right. So if you have a situation that you're just like frustrated about and you're like, I need to talk to somebody about it. Most of the time, a guy that's struggling with something emotionally, he's gonna go to another guy.
Right.
Because more likely than not, he's gonna get where you're coming from.
I think it's kind of the same as just like when girls come to guys, the hard part is we're not sure when we need to solve the problem or when we need to listen. We just think everything's a problem we need to solve. So the girls will be upset we don't get them. But in the same way, when a guy goes to a girl, if there's that, they don't understand fully, right? And you need to go to another guy. And I would say like exactly what you said. You would need to go to a guy that's like a level or more higher than you.
Yeah.
Right? Someone you really trust that you know that they're going to say the right thing. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's what I got to do kind of thing.
That is a perfect example because I know that there's guys that come to me for advice, but honestly, I would not go to them for advice.
Right.
There's certain people that I would go to for particular advice, and
right.
For me, the way that I operate when it comes to opening up about things, there's certain things, certain subject matters that I go to that person for. Like I don't go to the same person for every single little thing because it's kind of like my defense mechanism, because when I go to someone for advice, I'm exposing my weakness to them.
Right.
I don't want to expose every single weakness to this one person. And it's not that I don't value them enough or something like that. It's just how I operate. You know, I don't want to be overbearing to this one person. That's kind of one way of putting it. So I was telling this to one of the other guys that I come to advice for, and he's like, no, it's actually a pretty good idea because you're kind of spreading out the burden a little bit, and at the same time you're protecting yourself here, you're protecting yourself there, and you're just not giving everything to one person.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's a smart thing then.
Yeah, actually, I think that's actually that I guess self-preservation of it could be self-respect or like pride is very important for guys, and I think that's something that's dearly preserved a lot instinctually by guys. So yeah, we don't easily share because of that. And actually one of the reasons too that I really leaned on saying that sharing is really helpful in developing that brotherhood is actually in my background or family background, actually we strongly lean on stoicism, like quite it's like it's such a strong tendency. So I like kind of lean a little bit more, I'm more inclined to encouraging sharing because of that, because I do know that there's even to that, like what you said, Mason, there's a lot of guys who will not even go to somebody who they look up to or who they can get some really good advice, and they'll just be stoic about it and try to deal with the problem themselves, and then not share at all.
Right.
And I think that's also a big problem, that guys usually a lot of guys deal with.
I think guys, one thing, I think you hit it spot on when you talk about pride.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, we should try to solve it on our own in the beginning. Like I think that's a good, healthy way to see if I can solve this. I don't need someone's help in the beginning, but I think when the pride kicks in, when we really need the help, we still don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something where we have to, like, if we had brotherhood, like that big brotherhood, you got that older brother to talk to. It doesn't have to be the older age, right? But just an older brother is like, hey, man, I don't know what to do. I'm struggling with this. And I think that's where the brotherhood comes in, where if you don't have that brotherhood, you probably go to someone else outside.
Mm.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
I think what's even harder in Providence is when you're struggling with something inside Providence, you can't go to anyone on the outside because you can't even tell them about the Providence thing you're struggling with. So that
Right.
you're really stuck.
Right. I agree. I think to your original point, Sky, that it's really important, I think, especially for men to develop this self-reliance. Um, because let's say that you do have a problem, right? And you go to somebody, a lot of the times they're gonna be like, how come you don't know how to figure this out?
Right.
So you gotta, it's important to be able to develop this skill of self-reliance and, DIY kind of mentality. But there are points where it's just like, oh crap, I'm stuck. And I realized recently, not too long ago, like 2 months or so, I was listening to some, motivational speaker, and there was one thing in the whole entire video that really grabbed my attention, and it was the speaker said, uh, you shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help when you need it, right? When you ask for help, it does not mean that you're weak, because you're strong. You're strong. But when you ask for help when you're strong, it just means that you're trying to remain strong. Doesn't mean
Right.
that you're weak. So I realized that, and I was just like, wow, God, that's really true, because how many times do I come to you for help when I can't figure something out, or I don't know what decision to make?
Right.
It's not because I'm weak that I'm coming to you, God. I'm coming to you because I want to be strong. I want to be smart. I want to be wise. I want to do the right thing. So I kind of miniaturized it, and I'm like, well, if I'm struggling with something and I ask somebody for help, it doesn't mean that I'm weak or I can't do it. It
Right.
just means, hey, I need help with this. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, because I want to be strong. I want to be smart. I want to do my best. So how could you help me to do that?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great way of thinking about it too. I was thinking to myself, is it so as a guy, it's very interesting because I'm so, I'm physical, and uh like this is how physical I think just tell me if you guys have the same thing. I would rather talk to God and get help than a physical person because it feels weaker. Because I'm actually getting help. And this would be a better example. I would rather repent to God than write a letter.
Then write a letter to him. So,
We write letters, repentance letters and stuff, right? I would rather do it on my own, in the quietness, in the secret between me and God, instead of writing a letter to and it's a more physical thing where it gets out and someone's going to know.
Yeah. 100%.
I way prefer to do to God, rather than to a person.
Yeah.
For me, there's one caveat. I agree, but the caveat is, if it's someone that I don't know at all, that I'm more comfortable than just being like, hey, such and such, I made so and so, I made this and that mistake. I don't know that person. How could they possibly judge me, And even if they did, why would I care?
Oh, I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, let's just say it's bigger sins.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? There's the regular sins, I guess regular sins are like, oh, sorry, I hurt you by mistake. I said the wrong words to you, right?
I accidentally punched you in the face. My bad.
Yeah. Like, but then there's like, sometimes you go like, I'm coming from a position of, I'm a head leader and stuff. I'm like, oh, do I need to write this letter? Right? I'm like, oh, and it's the, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Right.
Well, not literally fall. I mean, follow. Yeah.
Collapse. Let's say collapse
and stuff. Like, you just don't want to do it anymore. Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore, kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely look at like. Have you guys ever heard this before? Sasim said this in one way, but I can take it in this way. He's talking about stars, but I'll talk about it in a different way. He basically said that if a girl lives by themselves without getting married for the rest of their life becomes 20% harder. If a guy lives by themselves for the rest of their life, so we're talking about stars, like this is what Sasim talking about stars, like because that's what they're doing. They're not getting married for the rest of their life, right? Their life is 80% harder.
80%.
Yeah.
Is there an explanation for that?
I don't know.
I think I've heard this.
Yeah.
I think I've heard this from someone before.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Like he just said, guys, if you become a star or if you live without getting married for the rest of your life is 80% harder. And the girls are 20% harder.
Oh.
I guess no matter which way we spin it, life is hard for guys.
Well, if you don't get married, if you become a star, or like, I think it's obviously it's not talking spiritually. It's obviously talking more physically, mentally, I guess.
Is that because guys are just generally more physical?
That could be one thing. I was thinking about that too, is because we're more physical and not as emotional. Like, for me to connect to God, if I'm more emotional or spiritual, then connect to God would be enough to fulfill some things in my heart. But if I'm more physical, then, I don't think I feel the same things a girl feels when they talk to God. Because I don't cry that much.
Makes sense.
I have the deep, invisible tears of Shimjung, but I don't have the tears that come out.
Sky doesn't cry. His tear ducts produce water vapor.
Yes, there you go. Yes.
They evaporate before rolling down his cheeks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I just yeah. Do you guys cry a lot when you pray?
No.
I see some girls cry almost every day. Some people, and I think to myself, do they have some type of sin? Like, what's going on? Why are they crying so much? I only cry like that if I have some something I'm repenting for. I don't cry like that every day, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. If it's a big thing, for sure.
Like full on sobbing, or like tears streaming down, or just like casual tears, like just.
What's a casual tear?
Like the one that slips out.
Like onions. When you cut onions and your eyes get watery, that's like casual.
No, not casual. They're crying. Like you can hear them.
Okay. Oh, really?
And you can hear it. I'm just like,
are you okay?
I'm like, I turn around like, every day? Like, what is going on in your life? But it's not, but I know it's not because their life is bad. It's just, I think they feel more. I don't know. Girls are out there listening to this too. I've seen girls cry way more than I rarely see guys cry during prayer.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll just say this. I'm not going to say who it was, but during our church's Friday night program today, there was someone that it was a male member, and he was praising, and I don't think I've ever seen this guy emotional the whole entire time I've been in Providence. But just like Julia said, I guess he had the casual tears. He stopped singing in the middle of praise, and he was like wiping his eyes.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? I was shocked, but that's how guys are. We don't really show it.
Are you guys moved when you see other people cry?
Sometimes, yeah.
Depends for what reason.
And it also depends on who they are to me. Are we friends? Are you my blood relative?
Yeah.
Then it might move me more.
Yeah, sometimes I cry because someone else cries. It's weird.
Like I remember when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that. My older sister started crying about something, and I started crying because.
Are you calling me a kid?
No.
No, but for me it's usually I see people cry. When I see people cry, usually during something spiritual, like praise, during a message, during a Bible study. I feel the impact, like in those situations.
Yeah. Different situation. Yeah.
So also there was a particular event that happened at our church not too long ago because actually one of the members had passed away.
Oh.
And I felt all the emotions and everything. I joined the praise for the event and was singing and everything, and his family was sitting in front of me, and his daughter was just started weeping at one point, and I was just like, you got to hold it together, man. You cannot get emotional right now. So for the whole entire thing, all these people
Hold
were
on.
saying
You
such
said that to the
moving.
girl? You're thinking that about the
No,
girl?
no, no, no. I'm thinking this to myself.
Oh, okay.
I
I
would
thought you were
not.
gonna be like, you better go get yourself together, you
Oh
6-year-old.
my God. I could not. I I would never. But I was thinking to
So
myself, because
Yeah.
her dad is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm standing literally right in front of her, like feet, like less than 5 feet in front of her. And
Right.
I'm like, Mason, do not get emotional. No matter
Right.
no matter what happens, like do not get emotional. And it was hard, because I
Oh.
really liked this guy. He
Mm.
was, I held him in high esteems. He was great. And the whole entire time people were saying all these incredible things about him, and I wanted to,
Mm.
but I didn't let myself. It was only until I started talking to his wife and was just like expressing to her like how much he meant to me and how much I valued him,
Mm.
that I started to cry. And then afterwards, I just went to the bathroom, went into the stall, and I just sat there for like a good 5 minutes and cried by
Mm.
myself. And then when I regained control of my emotions, then I went back out and started socializing with people. So,
Mm. You guys ever have like a time you need an emotional release? Like for me, when I need to cry, like I feel like I gotta cry. I'll go either to a movie theater by myself, or I'll watch a really sad movie on Netflix and I'll just cry during that and I'm done.
right.
uh, I man, I guess it's sometimes hard for me,
Mm.
because the 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 urge to cry doesn't come up all that often. It has to be something like super big.
Right.
Um,
I'm not
and
saying I cry
just
all the time. I'm just saying that when I need it, I'm going to find a way to release it.
I see. Yeah, I guess I'm a little different that way. Like if I don't cross that certain threshold,
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I don't need to cry. I'm good. I'll figure out a way to deal with the emotions in of course, a holistic way, a natural
Mm.
way.
Right.
Like for
Like,
me, I just work out, or I'll
oh,
just start punching and kicking things.
wow, that's very manly.
I did do Muay Thai, so like I actually have a bag. It's not a heavy bag or anything like
Right.
that. Someone needs to hold it, but if I have no one to hold it for me, I'll just
Yeah.
go somewhere and put it up against a tree and start kicking the heck out of it. Um,
Julius,
that's
what
kind of
about
how I
you?
deal with it.
Yeah. Do you ever have to get that release?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of a little bit harder for me because I think my dad is very stoic, so I kind of became very stoic. So I have to find other ways,
Mm.
like so like to express how I'm feeling. I think writing rap was one of the ways.
Mm,
Oh,
So that's one of the reasons I never used to record. I always just used to write,
right.
but but I was like, recording. Oh, come on. Are you gonna really record a song? Like I was like, because I was thinking, nah, I'm not really a musician. I play soccer, so I never thought of recording until
Mm.
mm,
and asked me to feature on his song and just write a verse for him, and then I started recording in that way. But before I only just used to write, um, in like a yeah lyrics in my book,
Mm.
and that's how I used to be able to release, yeah, or go to the gym. But it was very hard to to cry or like
Mm.
to try and make myself process it. Yeah, which was
mm,
kind of really odd because to be honest, I think I'm kind of like uh more I can feel people's emotions really strongly, but it's
Mm.
hard to like uh connect with it, like almost like I'm detached from my from my emotions, and then sometimes I connect, and then I'm like, wow, that's really strong, and it's
Right.
kind of, so I kind of live detached. So which is very helpful, because then you can kind of like, even in a very emotional state kind of situation, you can just process things logically because you're so detached. But it becomes difficult to reconnect. And then
You guys ever had a chance to cry in front of your mom, but you won't do it? Like, there's one time me, my mom, and my dad, all three of us went to a movie theater together to watch the movie Anna and the King. And his like youngest daughter, super cute, dies. Right. And my mom is crying next to me. And I am sitting there like, you're just kind of like this. But inside you're like, and you're like holding so tight so that nothing shows. But I'm just like, and I would hold it in. And then the thing that almost got me was I started having like a tear in this eye here. And I'd have to lift my head up like this so that it would dry up inside the eye so I can turn back up and see. But that's when I was like, in my 20s. One thing that's like, and I rarely cried. One thing that's kind of find weird for myself now is, now that I'm in my 40s, I cry more often. I feel more often.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really weird. I think I went through menopause or something.
I was gonna say your testosterone levels are going down, bro.
Oh, probably that's really happening for sure after 40. But
all right,
I think the girls
depletion of testosterone
about the menopause comment. They're like, you don't know what it feels like. Pretty crazy though, to be honest.
Day 120 of being a woman. I went through. Either way,
I think there's some girls, maybe not in Providence, but at least in the world, that are like that.
Yeah.
Day 14,552.
I know.
Got
Day
stacks
4
of
of menopause. It was a good day until 9 a.m. And then
oh gosh. Anyone who is listening and experiencing these symptoms, we are sorry.
You are not a man.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Either way, I think we've gone I think we've gone like an hour and like 30, hour 40 already. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to close it down here, but we got a lot to talk about for the next one too. I'm telling you guys, because Julius and I have experienced this before. Oh, no, Mason, were you there too? No, it was you, me, and it was me, Julius, and Daniel that other time. When it's 3 people, it's so different.
Yeah, for real, it is.
It's really, I'm not sure what the right word is, like intimate, more than intimate. It's just very it's like a real conversation. It feels different.
3 is the magic number.
Yeah, I think 3 is the magic number for sure. Either way. All right, guys, that's a lot we talked. There's some good stuff. I really enjoyed it.
If the girls are going to analyze this episode, they're going to have to set aside quite a bit of time. To
actually, the girls are doing something kind of cool. The girls are reacting to comments.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
It's quite
Was the second one posted for them?
They've done 2 already. Yeah. 3. Okay. 2. We're on 3. They're on 2.
Okay. I haven't seen the second one that they've done.
Yeah, it just came out yesterday.
I should watch it.
Yeah.
Or listen to it, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, their video comes out in this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 2 of them are avatars, by the way, but still. They still come on a video. Yeah. Either way, let's end it here, guys. Great.
Yes.
Today was a great session.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah. All right, everyone out there, we're going to say goodbye to you for now, and we'll see you guys again next week. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.